Dumthany Dumtano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of this new Ustalost project before the Glinting spell Unvests. This is the sophomore album of a black metal project spearheaded by multi-instrumentalist, songwriter, singer Will Skarstad. Will has been active in the East Coast metal scene for over a decade now. I recommend very highly one of his other bands, the black metal outfit Yellow Eyes. This project, like I said, dabbles in the same genre, but damn if this thing isn't aesthetically just on another level. Before the Glinting spell Unvests wouldn't be the first black metal LP with a lo-fi slant, but Will and his brother, who I believe is on production here, embrace this sound as a means of sometimes evoking some pretty nostalgic feels. The way the guitars and bass consistently meld together in these tracks gives almost a fuzzy warmth. The dusty analog synthesizers on this thing are a nice touch as well. For sure it's black metal, but there's something about it that feels as if it should be the soundtrack to some kind of 80s B-movie slasher flick, which I can't name a whole lot of records in this style that work that angle, much less do it well. What's also impressive is what Will does with all these layers of guitars, bass, and synthesizers, because across this LP, he comes through with some really righteous compositions. Multifaceted too. On the Bandcamp page for this record, I believe this thing is described as an experiment in indulgence, and yeah, I kind of agree. You wouldn't think tracks that are 6 to 8 minutes long would just be bursting at the seams with ideas, but yeah, they are. Which is sometimes to the detriment of the memorability of these tracks, as there are so many ideas flying by you within so many minutes. But it still doesn't change the fact many of these tracks have me on the edge of my seat waiting for the next idea or passage to unfold. The first track alone feels like several different songs or pieces flowing into each other. From the stunning synth intro and the throttling blast beats in the first leg, to the driving grooves and moonlit melody changes that are offered in the second third. The intro to the song Stinging Stone is so heavy and so thick it almost feels like a shoegaze cut. The ghostly druid chants that introduce themselves suddenly in the midst of the track are great as well. I wish they came back around in this song too. But I guess more twisted maze-like passages of guitar and bass are fine as well. But this section of the record is actually one of the few that stagnates for me a little bit. Not a whole lot in terms of like progression or evolution on these riffs or rhythms. Eventually the whole thing breaks into an abrupt finish with these slowly fading synthesizers. The slower pacing and 3/4 groove on White Marble Column Air does seem to leave more room for detail and nuance. It's a pretty enchanting track too, with its opening bells and swirling passages of synthesizers and guitar. The whole track feels like I'm going back to the Dark Ages for either some kind of castle siege on a stormy night or some pagan ritual. Love the way the drums suddenly pick up the pace into even more mesmerizing sections of guitar and synth. Dense compositions, dense instrumentation, there's just so many layers of it to eat up. Very much to a fault on the title track though, where Will throws so many compositional ideas and passages into this song, they come off a little disjointed. The guitar and vocal work isn't exactly bringing anything too fresh or new. Aesthetically, it feels like the record is painting itself into a corner a little bit. From here, the record saves the biggest cuts for last. There's the 8-minute Spider Tongue Memory Esther, which suffers from a lot of the same fragmentation of the title track, not to mention some of the rhythms and grooves presented on this track are laggy and stiff. But in fairness, the longer runtime of this song does allow Will to let some of these ideas and changes breathe, like the epic and almost medieval chord progressions being built on in the final leg. Then we have the 9-minute finisher, Bright Window Closing. Despite this thing being so long, it's actually one of the most fluid and cohesive cuts on the entire record. Every groove change feels so tight with the next, every lick feels so close either in rhythm or key. The melodies and harmonies on this one are some of the most like devilish and sinister and just instantaneously just memorable and sharp on the entire record too. Plus the way some of these spacious synthesizers color the leftover space, it's kind of like a John Carpenter piece. And what is that haunting group chant at the very end of the track? I can't quite put my finger on it. It sounds vaguely foreign and maybe sampled, but I haven't really heard a chant in this style in context with a black metal record, but it just fits perfectly. Overall, this thing Glinting is a very grim but colorful record that brings a lot of dark but cool ear candy, tortured vocal performances, transcendental guitar harmonies, great spectral synthesizers, creative lo-fi production. It's a good LP, and I think one of the more underappreciated metal gems I have heard in a minute. I'm surprised more people aren't talking about it, but feeling a decent 2 strong 7 on this one. Transition, have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head, it's another video you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, black metal forever.